Hi class, today I'm going to be talking about the Devil's Hole Pupfish, which you'll see on this slideshow. It's not the best quality, but hopefully it'll give you an idea of what they look like. So this is a very unique and rare species of fish. There's a very small population with less than 100 left in existence, and a large reason for that is that they're found in only one place on Earth, which is in Death Valley, Nevada. It's a national park. As you can see here, this is Nevada. Here is California. There's the border. Devil's Hole, which is where they live, is located right there. That is the only place on Earth where you can find the Devil's Hole pupfish. Scientists hypothesize that during the last ice age, when the waters receded, a population of pupfish got trapped in the hole and evolved a lot differently than other types of pupfish, like the desert pupfish, which lives not too far away from these guys. But they're very different in the fact that the males, as you can hopefully tell, are this really bright blue color. They're super shiny, and they stand out quite a bit. Whereas females and young are more of a yellowish color. They're like a dull yellowy gray, which is used as a survival technique. You can see this in other types of fish and in some bird species like peacocks and mallard ducks, where the male will be like a much more flashy color to attract predators towards them, so that hopefully females and young can escape if there is ever a need, for that to happen. But they're also pretty different in the fact that they lack certain parts of typical fish anatomy. I think this is like a trout, but anyway, this is what your average fish looks like. And they lack something right here called the pelvic fin, which aids most fish in staying level in the water. It helps them to balance and keeps them from floating up when they're in like the lower pressures underwater. But since the pupfish lives typically like 1 to 2 feet underwater, they live on these rocky shelves in Devil's Hole. That's where they breed, they eat, and lay eggs. That's basically where they spend most of their time. They don't really need their pelvic fin to keep them from floating up too much. But it's also interesting to see that when they're put in captivity and subjected to cooler waters, and by cooler waters I mean temperatures that are under 92 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the average temperature for Devil's Hole year round. So that's like bath water, which is pretty crazy. But when they're in cooler temperatures, as you can hopefully tell here, this little chart shows that they, when they have their pelvic fin, this is like the amount of fish with the pelvic fin, and this is the amount of food that they'll get. With the pelvic fin, they get much higher amounts of food, as you can see. Without the pelvic fin, there's a significant difference. So it's very strange to see how these fish have evolved without the pelvic fin, even though it obviously aids them in hunting and, well, not hunting, but, gathering food. This fish, since it has always had such a low population that we know of, since they were discovered by humans in the 1930s, they were one of the first species to be put under the Endangered Species Act in 1966. I think they were like one of 5 of the first ever to be put on there because they had such a small population. And this helped them for a while. They were protected in Death Valley, but their population continued to decline, just, I don't know, because they lived in such a specific habitat. But anyway, in 1983, a Californian governor created a desert pupfish wildlife refuge, which included Devil's Hole and the Devil's Hole pupfish, which actually did quite a bit in helping to increase their numbers. So if you can see on here, this is 1983, which is when it was enacted, the refuge was. Ignore this year, they must have just forgotten to count or something. But anyway, you can see that it went from being around 175 in 1983 to over 300 by the mid-90s. You can see right here. Their population increased pretty well, probably due to the Refuge Act that the governor made. But also you can tell that since then their population has only, well, it's declined quite a bit since the 2000s. Though they are having like some random upsurges, I don't anticipate that they'll have a huge comeback unless we really do something. scientists aren't exactly sure why this happens either, like why their population is decreasing so much when they're having so much protection. Like, they're put in a national park, they have a fence surrounding Devil's Hole, there's security cameras, there's motion detectors, and yet their population is still continuing to do very poorly. As of 2021, when their last count was, there were 35 fish left in existence. 35. But I really don't think that we should let them die off, because I think every species is important in its own way. We don't know how they impact their ecosystem, what specific ways that they make change or, influence the environment around them. If we got rid of it, then something horrible could happen and we would have no power to change that, because if this fish went extinct, there'd be nothing we could do to reverse the effects. So I think that we should continue to help it. There's a lot of people around Death Valley who want to see it die. They don't understand why we're helping a fish that only has 35 left in the world, but I really don't think we should just let it die off. Every species is important in its own way. We might not know it, but I'm sure that it is. But anyway, this is the Devil's Hole pupfish. I hope that you learned something today, and thank you for watching.